The bombing, the gunshots, the screams and shouts were all getting too much. He was already tired of seeing the death and despair the war was bringing in. No village was safe. Everything collapsed when the bomb killed his family. His 2 sons and wife all gone. He had no choice but to take his youngest son and flee to the jungle before the war claimed their lives as well. Hello everyone and welcome to our channel. Our video today is about a man who lived in the jungle for more than 40 years to escape the war. Before we get into the details, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Remember, click on that little bell icon so you never miss any of our amazing stories. It's no secret that war changes people in ways they never thought possible. It forces people to do extreme things just to stay alive. At the end of the day, no one wants to die or watch their loved ones suffer. So when the war raged in Vietnam between 1955 to 1975, everyone was scared. The soldiers and civilians alike. The war was brutal. Many lives were lost. No one was safe anywhere, not the small villages or the big cities. Ho Van Than was one of these people, caught in the ravages of war. His wife and 3 sons were trying to stay alive the best they could as he went off to be a soldier. In 1972, he was stationed near his hometown in northern Vietnam. It was a relief to be close to home. Now he could protect them. But what could a ground soldier do to stop the bombing? As the explosions echoed all around the village, Ho Van Than rushed to his home, but it was already too late. One look at his house and his heart sank. He didn't have to step inside the house to figure out that no one was inside, and that no one inside could have survived. Despair grabbed hold of him like never before. At that moment, Ho Van Than hated everyone, the war, the soldiers, every human who waged these wars and wasted lives. He was caught up in rage and grief. Ho Van Than couldn't believe that they were gone. The bombing hadn't stopped, but he didn't care to run for shelter. His family was gone. He didn't have any strength to go on anymore. That's when he saw his youngest son. The little one who was just 2 years old, covered in dust. The little fellow was crying his eyes out. Ho Van Than rushed to his son and embraced him. His son, Ho Van Lang, was the only thing that he had left in the world, and he would protect his son at all costs. Van Than did the one thing he could think of. He picked up his son and ran into the jungle. He didn't know for how long or for how far he ran. All he could think of was how much he hated the war and that he had to keep his son safe. Things started to get quiet for a while. Van Than looked around and breathed in deep. It had been a very long time since he came across such peace. He had finally found a place away from the chaos, a safe place for his son. Van Than realized they'd be spending some time in the jungle. The way he saw it, the war was nowhere near close to ending, and he was not going to put himself or his son through it ever again. If they were going to survive in the forest, he knew they needed access to water. Van Than went in search and came across a river. The water was so clean and fresh that it immediately gave him new strength. Here was a place to make a fresh start. So Van Than got to work. He got some branches and leaves and built a hut for them. He made sure to keep it above ground and to keep them safe from the rising water levels and protect from any predators lurking around. The next concern was food. The jungle had plenty of edible fruits, vegetables and roots, but there were also plenty of things that could be lethal. Occasionally, he managed to catch small animals as well. The river offered them some good fish, and on other days, he managed to catch frogs, lizards, and sometimes rats. As the days went by, Van Than began to lose track of time. Days and months meant nothing in the jungle. It was quiet and peaceful, and there was no need to run, no need to live in fear. Van Than spent his whole days hunting, building small utensils, and teaching his son how to survive in the jungle. Things weren't always easy in the forest. Raising a 2-year-old son all alone was hard enough, but without proper clothing and medicine was doubly so. And he had to make sure his son didn't wander off. But whatever the hardships, anything was better than being in a war zone. Van Than decided that the jungle was a much better place to live than the village. He had no idea whether the war had ended, and he did not want to venture out into society to find out. Little did he know that the war ended a few years after he had fled. Having decided to live out his days in the forest, Van Than turned their shelter into a hut. He used an axe he'd made to chop down small trees and built a sturdier home. Eventually, he managed to build a small, 7-square-foot hut with a thatched roof at the base of a large tree. He also began cultivating. Having some homegrown food around was always a good idea. He found a way to cultivate corn. Combined with the fruits, cassava roots, and the fish, food was never a problem. The only mementos they had of their old lives were the clothes they wore when they fled. In a corner of their hut, Van Than tucked away his soldier's trousers and his son's little red coat. Years passed. Van Than and his son lived away from society, hiding away from any rare wandering traveller. For Van Than, this change was a peaceful one. He loved the calm of the forest. The pure air, the rustling of the leaves was a welcome change to a soldier who had lost his family. For Van Than, the forest was all he knew. Other than ways to survive in the forest, there wasn't much his father couldn't teach him. Besides, the only people he had seen in his life were his father. Van Lang had not even seen a woman in his entire life. He didn't know that such people existed. So it wasn't surprising that Lang was curious about the outside world. There was so much he didn't know, but his father would not even hear it. He had seen enough of the horrors of the world. The last thing he wanted for his son was to be exposed to them. Van Than saw no reason to return to the world or re-enter civilization. He had nothing to return to. But as it turned out, one of Van Than's sons, Ho Van Tri, had survived the explosion. He found out from the villagers that his father and brother had been seen fleeing towards the forest and was now eager to reconnect with his long-lost family. Van Tri set out to track down his brother and father, but they were not easy to find. His father had taken every possible precaution to stay hidden, but they were the only family Van Tri had left. He was not giving up until he found them. After some years of searching, Van Tri finally found them. The forest was being cut down, and the pair was sighted more and more frequently. Van Tri wasted no time in following the leads he got. But the reunion was far from a warm welcome. His brother had never seen another human and was downright afraid of Van Tri, and his father's paranoia and dislike had only worsened during his time in the forest. Van Tri approached them cautiously. He tried to make them understand who he was, but Van Tri had fallen out of the habit of speech and barely spoke to him. And Van Lung barely understood any speech and didn't know how to speak beyond a few words. For the next few decades, Van Tri visited them in the forest. In almost every visit, he'd persuade his father to try and return home, and every time his father turned away. Van Than had lived for so many years thinking Van Tri was dead. He had a hard time simply processing the fact that his son was alive, let alone returning to the world. Van Tri bought them supplies whenever he visited, but Van Than, suspicious of his son, did not use anything he brought. He simply stashed the things away in their hut. Eventually, the local authorities got wind of two 80 and 40-year-old men living in the jungle. Finally, in 2013, the two were coaxed to return to civilization. By this time, Van Than was so weak, he had to be carried out of the forest on a stretcher. Although the government made them a new home, Van Than would often try to go back to the jungle. Van Lang was no better. After spending so much time in the forest, normal life just didn't seem right. Having nothing to do, Van Lang restarted his farming. Little by little, he learned how to speak and slowly began to embrace this new way of life. Although he still had a hard time wrapping his mind around everything, he grew to not be suspicious of the world. What would you have done if you had to live in the forest for so long? Let us know in the comments down below, and as always, if you like this video, please remember to like and share and subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.